The UFO hearings are currently underway, and I am so utterly bored by all of it because look, if you're going to come out and tell me aliens exist, fine, do it. But they're not doing that. They're dancing around the campfire saying aliens, 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 hinting at illicit undertakings and things like that. But okay, fine. Let's talk about the, I guess, technically shocking revelations so far. Look, they may be saying that people have been murdered to cover up the UFO conspiracy and suggesting that perhaps aliens exist and are trying to hurt us. But I think it's all just innuendo. I think it is all just illusions, not illusions, allusions, references, making claims of something that may exist when the reality is it's probably U.S. military tech. The story's probably not all that exciting. And meanwhile, the big breaking story is that Hunter Biden's plea deal is falling apart. Now, I'll cover that one in the next segment. I want to give that one time to fester a little bit because at the time of recording, the news is just breaking. Hunter Biden's plea deal has collapsed because of potential FARA implications. He didn't register as a foreign agent. So in the meantime, we'll talk about what everyone else is wanting to talk about, the UFO congressional hearings. Because I must say, at least the headlines are fun. Two big claims being made. One, that people have been murdered as part of a conspiracy to keep alien craft a secret. And as I mentioned earlier, the implication or suggestion that there are aliens trying to hurt us. It's creepy, isn't it? Well, I don't like bearing the lead, so I'll just tell you what I think. It's military technology. That's just simply put. Now, there has been testimony by at least one individual saying this could just be foreign drones. Very serious national security issue that needs to be addressed. I think that's a fair point. I've long said this. I'm not going to immediately make the assumption that aliens are here spying on us and trying to hurt us. It's just that, well, aircraft, jets, ridiculously old technology by modern standards. We went from inventing air flight to going to the moon in the span of only a few decades. And for all the people who don't believe we went to the moon, satellites exist. Okay, I'll put it that way. We went from inventing basic flight and then within only a few decades, launching objects into orbit by which we can communicate. So, interesting, right? But what I think is based on the gaps in time from the invention of rocketry and launching of satellites and the moon landing, where should the U.S. military technology be today? Profoundly better. And not even the U.S., but China and other countries as well. If you think the U.S. is going to come out and tell you everything about the latest technology, you're crazy. And if you're a military pilot, you're basically, it's akin to flying a blimp when we've invented fighter planes, right? And you don't know about top secret projects. You wouldn't know necessarily. So perhaps the reality is the U.S. has invented tremendous military technology, very expensive, hard to reproduce, but in limited quantities. And they're testing it. And when you see it, they go, aliens. That's the explanation. Or, okay, fine, not to rain on anyone's parade. Perhaps it really is aliens. And maybe Earth is just more akin to a chicken coop. And the aliens are watching over us. And that's life. Here's the story from the Daily Mail. Tim Burchett kicks off bombshell UFO Congress hearing as whistleblower suggests people have been murdered as part of a conspiracy to keep alien craft a secret. Outright, look, they're heavily implying that the U.S. is in possession of alien technology. Please, I would love for that to be the case. And maybe, I suppose the argument is the reason they're slow rolling the story, some say it's a distraction, so that we don't pay attention to the Biden corruption, et cetera, et cetera. Others say it's because if they came out one day and said, oh, by the way, aliens are real, we have spaceships and we're at war, people would lose their minds. But we're at the point, I got to be honest, where they've, just issued drops of the story to such a degree. I'm just like, dude, shut up already. Tell me there are aliens and show me a picture or just carry on. I'm done wasting my time with this. Not done enough, I suppose. Here we go. The Daily Mail reports a former intelligence officer today suggested people have been murdered as part of a conspiracy to keep UFOs a secret in a bombshell hearing held by Congress. David Grush, a former high-ranking intelligence official, is one of 3 military whistleblowers testifying under oath that they know firsthand about secret programs involving technology far surpassing the U.S.'s capabilities. During the first of its kind hearing today, Rep. Tim Burchett asked Grush, Quote, personally, have you heard anyone been murdered? Grosh said, I have to be careful answering that question. I directed people with that knowledge to the appropriate authorities, effectively saying yes. Okay, you see what that is? People with that knowledge to the authorities. If someone came to you and said, did that guy throw an apple at someone else's head? And then, do you know of anybody who's thrown an apple? If it didn't happen, you wouldn't direct the people to the authorities, would you? You'd say, I can't answer that question, right? I shouldn't answer the question. Or to be completely honest, you'd say, no, that didn't happen. Why? You're not revealing any classified information by denying the story. So to say I directed people with that knowledge to the appropriate authorities is to say the people who know about who else has been murdered, the people who know about murders to cover this up, he's told them, go to the police. It's very funny, right? Grush was sworn in Wednesday along with Ryan Graves, an esteemed former pilot, and Navy veteran, Pilot Commander David Fravor, who witnessed the 2004 Tic Tac UFO. It was amazing to see. I told my buddy I wanted to fly it. I'm not like a UFO fanatic. It's not me. But I will tell you that what we saw with 4 sets of eyes over a 5-minute period, still, there's nothing we have coming close to it. It's just incredible technology. I hear these stories, and they say there's an object, and it's zipping left and right. It's flying super fast and then stops and then turns on a dime, instantly 90 degrees. And I've shown these videos before. They have these remote control helicopters that can make similar motions, granted, not at high rates of speed, like hundreds of miles per hour, breaking the sound barrier. But why is it so hard to believe that the U.S. developed this technology? Because you don't see it with your own eyes? Because you're not watching planes fly through the sky? Come on. The Manhattan Project is proof the U.S. can compartmentalize massive weapons projects and people wouldn't know what was going on. And that was the point. They put one person in one area, another person in another area, and neither knows what the other is doing. Only those at the top. So when it comes to, 70, 80 years after the advent of some of this technology, are we really going to sit here and say we've improved flight stabilization, speed, weapons, but it's still just the same old jet with computers on it? Or are we going to be like, maybe we figured out a way to make lighter materials so that air can be displaced better and it can be controlled, and using jet thrusters of smaller and smaller sizes? Look, it may be entirely reasonable to believe that the U.S. has developed anti-grav technology. I do not think that is far-fetched. There are reports, numerous stories, urban legends, and myths of people finding ways to make things float. In fact, I actually have a magnetic UFO that floats on the studio table every single day. So it's not unthinkable. If you brought some of these electromagnetic levitation things, back 40, 50 years, people might be like, whoa, how's it doing then? You say magnets. It's not surprising. We know magnets exist. As for other technologies, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that they've figured out how to neutralize, cancel, or invert gravity to allow vehicles to move very, very rapidly. The interesting thing, however, would be breaking the sound barrier. That's what I'm interested about, because moving through physical matter, gas, friction, all of that stuff. One of the most interesting things, in my opinion, about this testimony, to be fair, look, I am frustrated by it because I care more about earthly politics. But one of the most fascinating things, is that one of these guys was testifying that they saw this object by the water, and when they had one jet above observing and one going down to get a closer look, it zooms straight off faster than they can. And then they're told within less than a minute, it was 60 miles away. Now that's interesting. Ian Crossland on Timcast IRL likes to talk about something called talking plasma. And he makes a really good point with it. What you do is you get high-powered lasers, maybe even from a satellite, and you take 3 of them and you triangulate their position. What happens is all the lasers hit together at the same point. So you can't see the beams themselves, but where they intersect, you will see like a white orb or something. Guess what? It can move at the speed of light because it is light. All they're doing is moving the lights left and right like this, right? And then what happens is it looks like the orb is zipping and shooting around. And then you're like, whoa, what is that? Now, to be fair, they were actually saying that some of these objects are appearing on radar or even jamming their devices. So I'll just tell you this. You know what I think it is? I think it's U.S. military technology. Have a nice day. I say it all the time. They say great, and that's why people could be murdered. Why would someone be murdered to cover this up? Because it is an advanced weapons project put together by the United States, and they're like, do not tell people about it. Someone stumbles upon it, and they're like, we're going to keep our secrets. Graves was the first to give opening statements, reminding Congress he had endured 2 deployments during his time at the U.S. Air Force as an F-18 pilot. My testimony is based on information I've been given by individuals with a long-standing track record of legitimacy in service to this country, many of whom have shared compelling evidence in the form of photography, official documentation, and classified oral testimony. Here's another reality. Another entire possibility is that this is a psyop. There's that Bob Lazar, I think his name was. I think Joe Rogan had him on his show. And this guy's like, aliens, I witnessed them. I was working in these labs. Let me tell you about a psychological operation. Now, it's entirely possible that somebody did witness little aliens and spaceships and all that stuff. It's also entirely possible that the U.S. government sets up a lab, hires someone, and in that lab, they have manipulations, illusions, set up specifically to trick a single person. You say, why would they go to all that effort? All right, I can easily explain. Perception is reality. And if a guy is an engineer and he gets hired and told you're coming to a top secret laboratory, and this guy goes to this laboratory to work, first, it is not out of the question the government would set up a laboratory or spend all this money. They do it all the time. We know they exist. Second, if it's secret and working on experimental projects, we know those exist as well. It would not be expensive to set things up so that as this guy was walking through, he would see spaceships and weird things. We could do way more with Hollywood. So you get a guy who's walking through and he sees all this stuff, and then you say, but don't you tell anybody, and then he runs out and says, there's aliens, on purpose. There were never aliens. They set the guy up so that he would go out and tell the world on TV, the U.S. is hiding alien technology. Why? So that our enemies fear us, to keep them in a state of confusion. And I'll put it this way. If China knows every weapon that we have, every capability, they can formulate a plan and they'll take Taiwan. If there is even a modicum of doubt and they can say we're not quite sure the defensive capabilities of the U.S. because they are keeping many of their weapons secret, they don't know exactly how to respond. They could make a move on Taiwan and then all of a sudden a rod from God falls from the sky and shatters right in the South China Sea. And for those that aren't familiar with rods from God, they're gigantic tungsten bars you launch into space and put in a satellite. If you watch G.I. Joe, you know what I'm talking about. And then it opens up and just drops this tungsten rod, this dense metal that just accelerates, slams into the earth with the power of several nuclear bombs. I think more than several. I think like 100 times more powerful or something like that. Let me pull up this tweet from Ed Krasenstein. He says, breaking. Former U.S. intelligence agent David Grush, while testifying to Congress in the UFO hearings, just scared the crap out of me. The idea of UFOs and aliens isn't frightening, but the idea that they could exist and that they would be trying to harm humanity is very concerning. I'll probably have nightmares for the next 3 months. You know, this is interesting. Serious question. I haven't had a nightmare since I was like a little kid. It's weird. You know, nightmares are very different. And people talk about, I don't know, when I was a kid, it was monsters or something and weird things going on. But like my nightmares today, it's you know, I'll be sleeping and then in my dream, I'll wake up late and be like, oh no, I'm late for the show. And it's just like, that's it. It's a little bit of anxiety. And then I wake up like, oh, it was a dream. It's not like a shock fear of aliens trying to kidnap or harm me. But let me play for you this clip so you can hear it all for yourself. Here we go.
So there has been activity by alien or non-human technology and or beings that has caused harm to humans.
I can't get into the specifics in an open environment, but at least the activity that I personally witnessed, and I have to be very careful here because they tell you never to acknowledge tradecraft, right? So what I personally witnessed, myself and my wife, was very disturbing.
What does that mean? What does it mean? All right, let's play conspiracy game. 1, all of these guys are in on it. The military says, we want you to feed false information. You're going to go before Congress. Intelligence agencies routinely break the law. They apparently are above the law in their minds. And so they go before this, and you have to be vague for legal reasons. but also to make it believable. If you come out right and just say aliens are here and they're hurting people, people are going to say, yo, please, you're nuts. But if you keep it vague and keep some element of doubt, people might be like, whoa, I wonder what's really going on. And distraction. Maybe the reality is aliens do exist and they are trying to hurt us. That's also possible. I just think it's exceedingly unlikely. But it's possible that they're trying to drip this information out as to not shock the public. You take a look at movies like Men in Black, and they made the point. The reason they keep everything a secret from humanity about the aliens is because people would lose their minds. And the only way that these people go on with their lives is that they do not know about it, which is kind of insane if you were to ask me. It makes literally no sense. I understand the idea of the movie. The idea is that there's been this conspiracy theory forever about men in black who show up after various things and tell people what to say or what to think or what happened. There's stories about, like, on 9/11, someone who witnessed the Pentagon is like in a hospital bed and two men wearing black suits show up and say, you know, here's what happened. I don't know. There's just stories on the internet. Who knows if they're real? But the idea that there could be in like galactic threats and all that stuff, and you would withhold that from human beings makes no sense at all. It doesn't make any sense. For what purpose? Existential crises? Maybe it makes sense in that religious people around the world would lose their minds or something like that. It would shatter their understandings of reality. I don't know. Maybe the idea is that we're not culturally developed enough to enter the Galactic Federation, if there exists one. I think the simple answer is this. If aliens actually existed, like, you know, and we're coming and watching, you know, we'd know about it. I gotta be honest, man. My chickens know I exist. I walk up, they look at me, and they run over, they waddle their little bodies when we come to give them food. So if aliens were coming to observe Earth and all of that stuff, I suppose I could say the only reason they wouldn't reveal themselves and it would only be very light contact, there's a few reasons, I suppose. One, they are not substantively more powerful than we are, in which case we can take out their aircraft, and unless they make proper contact, conflict would be inevitable. It could be that they have ill intent and they want our resources or something. That seems to make no sense because the universe is big. And if you can travel the speed of light and travel between galaxies or planets or whatever, you can go anywhere to get whatever you want. You don't need to come here for it. It could be science. They could be just observing us to see what we do. You know, when we go out into the wilderness and we're secretly filming animals, they often don't know that we're there. That might seem to make the most sense. Why are there crashes? Well, you know, look, we have people go out into the jungle with cameras and equipment, minding their own business, hiding from nature, and the animals go about their business, but sometimes the animals catch them, and sometimes people get mauled to death. And then the animals are like, what are these strange devices? They are strange to us. I think a strong possibility, of course, is that we are being distracted. Because I'm sorry to say, look, the big news right now in the real world where everything matters to us is the criminal charges against Hunter Biden falling apart. That's what matters. And so I do want to point out, I certainly believe the existence of aliens is possible. Technology, of course, exists beyond our understanding. It always has, and it always will. And perhaps there are aliens observing us. But how is that going to affect whether or not you eat, whether or not your kids are happy, whether or not you're having kids, whether or not you can afford a house, whether or not you're sick or healthy, whether or not you were able to run or sleep? It doesn't. Unless the aliens declared war on us, I guess. I suppose we can make the argument that if they are here and they are harming people, they're abducting people or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. That could affect your life. I think overwhelmingly, though, 99.99999% of the time, 99.999% of you will never encounter anything like this. It will not have a direct impact on your life. And so it's interesting to check in from time to time to see what's going on with it. But the reality is we should be focused on how our system is running. If aliens exist, I wonder. You know, I was talking to Joe Rogan about this somewhat facetiously. You know, if there's a galactic federation, a galactic civilization or network, Star Trek-like or otherwise, Earth cannot join it unless there's a one-world government. And maybe that's the big conspiracy, that the people in government around the world who know that aliens exist and that there is some kind of a galactic civilization whether they're unified or not, whether it's a galactic republic or otherwise, a bunch of different planets and aliens interacting with each other, how can we be a part of whatever it is if Earth is not even a type 1 civilization? That is to say, we're fighting each other. If the planet was a single planet, it would make sense that humans would be able to negotiate with other creatures, other life forms. Perhaps the reason aliens do not make contact is they know. If an alien race lands in Russia, war. Lands in China, war. Lands in the United States, war. There are ways to solve for this. Alien representatives land in the multiple biggest superpowers at the same time, posing an equal threat, forcing unification of the planet, which is why I just plumb don't think it's aliens. It just doesn't, I don't know. Look, either come out and say it's true or stop wasting my time. All right. It's very interesting stuff to a certain degree, but I've heard all of it. Okay. There's insinuations that we have off-world technology. You've got to be specific. Off-world. What? Somebody built a toaster on a space station? You're calling it off-world technology? Spare me. Tell me that you found a device we don't understand. Show us the device. This talking. I'll leave it there. Let's get back to the real world politics. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.